Hey everyone, welcome back to Portal of Wisdom. I'm back with another story for you. If you are new to the channel, like and subscribe and click that little post notification bell so you get alerted when I post new videos. And now on to today's topic. Today we are going to talk about all the different buried treasure stories near City of Rocks, which is a national monument, I believe, in southern Idaho. And there used to be some wagon trails that came through this area, and there are quite a few different stories of buried treasures in this area, and we're going to go over a few of those. So, gold was discovered in Idaho in quite a few spots in the early 1860s and even in southwest Montana around this time. So, after gold was discovered, a lot of the miners came to the area. They flocked to this area and all these different areas that had these boom towns that sprung up. And eventually, so did outlaws to rob the miners and the stagecoaches that were carrying this new wealth down the trails and roads, many of which led toward Salt Lake City and toward the railroads. And even a lot of this gold and silver mined from those Montana mines in Bannock, Montana, and Virginia City, Montana, made its way down into Idaho, down a lot of these roads, and also down towards Salt Lake City, Utah, and the Union Pacific Railroad. So even Sheriff of Virginia City in Bannock, Montana, Henry Plummer, who had turned into an outlaw, said that he had buried $100,000 worth of stolen loot somewhere along the trails from Virginia City through Idaho. Another outlaw named Ed Long and his partner stole about $100,000 worth of gold nuggets and gold dust in Portneuf Canyon between Pocatello and McCammon, Idaho. So, knowing a posse would be quick on their tail, Ed Long and his partner, they hightailed it to the west towards City of Rocks. And this area is in southern Idaho near the Utah border. So the posse caught up with them near City of Rocks, and Ed tried to put up his hands and surrender, but his partner had different ideas, and he raised his gun and he started firing, so naturally the posse fired back, and Ed, it said, was killed here. And his partner was taken to a nearby stage station and had his wounds tended to while they asked him where the missing loot was, because apparently it wasn't on them or near them when his outlaw partner was captured. So the partner would not speak or tell any details about where the treasure was or where they buried it or whatever. But the posse determined that at this point that he was actually a wanted man in Texas, and so he was sent back to Texas. And the loot was never found, and it was assumed to be hidden near City of Rocks, as it's believed that the posse caught up to them near City of Rocks because this is where they stopped to bury the loot, allowing the posse time to finally catch them at this point. In 1878, a stagecoach bound for a military camp near Boise was robbed near Goose Creek, just a few short miles north of City of Rocks. The strong box was so heavy with gold bullion worth $90,000 to $200,000, depending on the reports, and it was so heavy that the strong box had to be dragged by the outlaws' horses. So the posse was able to follow these drag marks, which led to City of Rocks before they disappeared. So the posse found the outlaws in one of the canyons at City of Rocks, and a shootout ensued. And one outlaw was killed, and the other was captured a couple of days later. And the surviving outlaw would not tell where the strong box was buried, but it is believed to be near the base of Treasure Rock in City of Rocks. So there were also records of 5 outlaws and their holdup that netted them around $100,000 in gold. The posse had trailed them to Box Canyon in City of Rocks, where they were all killed in a shootout. And the loot was not found with them, so it had to be buried nearby somewhere. So, City of Rocks is a rather isolated place today. It's pretty far from civilization, but it wasn't always that way. It was used as a crossroads for a lot of the trails from the 1840s to the late 1800s. So the Oregon Trail and California trails went through this area. The Oregon Trail pioneers that decided to head for the California gold fields deviated from the Oregon Trail, which ran along the Snake River, and they headed south and down into Utah, and they went right through the City of Rocks area. So this was a popular trail during the 1800s for the wagons. And another pioneer tale that was told about the City of Rocks area that was believed by many to not be true any longer. It was believed to be true for a long time, then for a long period of time, people believed the story was not true at all. And this story is one of a massacre on Alamo Creek near City of Rocks. And this story says that an immigrant caravan of 60 wagons took the sublet cutoff for the California Road and were attacked by Native Americans. The 300 plus pioneers held off the attack for quite a few days, but were eventually all killed except for 5 that managed to escape. And it was said that the massacre, the site was known for having lots of relics, and also that many times the pioneers in these type of situations would bury their money so that they didn't lose it or have it stolen from them. And this way, if they survived, they could dig it back up and they could continue on their journey. So obviously they would, if they circled their wagons up, they may bury their money and treasure and whatever they had of value, and then fight on. And then if they survive, they dig up what they had buried and continued on. Well, obviously some people maybe didn't survive, so their loot would still be buried. So there is a historical marker of this event that was erected in 1938, but some believe that since there should be a large amount of media on this massacre, that it should have been in the news and in some of the area newspapers, or should have been some more accounts of it. And a lot of people believe that since there really wasn't much mention of this or documentation of this, a lot of people thought it was just a story, and that if there was a massacre of this size, it would be one of the biggest massacres in the West, like maybe the second or third largest one. So people thought this should have made more news. This was probably just a story, and that was all that it was, and that the historical marker that had been erected was, that they were mistaken. This actually didn't happen, is what a lot of people thought. But as I did some research on this story, I did find an account of someone that told about their great-grandmother Wickle, who had told a story about being a child when her family came to the Alamo area on a Mormon wagon train in the 1800s. And this particular descendant, she asserts that the story is not fiction. She says that her great-grandmother said that when they arrived in the area, there were a lot of remains of a wagon train and many dead settlers' bodies everywhere. And it was apparent that it wasn't attacked by Native Americans. She said she was told by her great-grandmother's family and other new settlers' families that they had to bury the dead bodies in order to start homesteading in the area. And the settlers also built a school, and she had said that her great grandmother had told stories on how she had to step over these grave mounds, quite a few of them, on her way to school. So she said her great grandmother Wickle had married a ward in the area and raised a family on Connor Creek west of Alba, Idaho. And she said there's still many Wickles and wards that live in the area, and that this story is totally true and has been in her family for a long time. So, those are just a few of the stories about buried treasures in or near City of Rocks that may still be there, and the massacre site that could have some potential buried treasures. So, there's a lot of treasure stories, and this seems to be a place that a lot of outlaws tried to escape to. As it was an area they could more easily hide out among the big pinnacles and spires and canyons, and it's a beautiful area. But anyhow, those are a few of the stories.